Hey, Cara.
Hey, Rachel. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for stopping by.
No, anytime.
So, Coffee and Conversations with Rachel. What's your favorite go-to coffee?
Ooh, depends. I've been drinking it black lately, but I'm starting to miss. I'm missing the flavor of other things. So probably just a latte with oat milk.
Okay. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'll take your word.
I have tea right now, so I don't have
that's what
much
I have.
to add. Yeah.
Why did you decide to go black? Just nothing in it?
Health reasons. Just feeling like it was not having as much sugar, and then just trying to go with the non-dairy route as much as possible. So, but I do miss a good, peppermint mocha from back in the day from Starbucks. Those were a go-to favorite for a long time. Yeah. So.
Did you drink a lot when you were teaching, like more coffee?
Yes. Boundless amounts of coffee, probably. Multiple cups a day, yes. And I've switched to energy drinks since becoming a mom more recently because I felt that coffee is still a comfort for me, but it doesn't really wake me up like it did
interesting.
Anymore. So now I do...
you need more caffeine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. More than what coffee can give me in the moment's time, So
you have 3 daughters, and that is our series right now, Raising Godly Girls. And I'm sure they're all unique and different, like my kids are. And I have 3 girls, but 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that difference between them and like teaching them about Jesus and knowing them about Jesus? Does that come in a different route for like all of them, or?
I think it does, for sure. I think every one of them is very different in their approach to seeking knowledge and how they kind of gather information. And, we have like big conversations with all of us that are just organic. And also just those one-on-one kind of sweet moments that come with them. And like with my oldest, who is 9, we're able to get to a lot more depth and really kind of starting to talk about more kind of relationship applications for her. And she was baptized this fall. And so just kind of getting to take it to that deeper level with her, which is really sweet. And then my middle is my jump in the deep end with both feet child. And so she, we've been having conversations about baptism lately because she sees her sister's example. And so she wants to talk more about it. And she's been writing out for us a list of her pros, why she's ready to be baptized now. And so, and I don't want to deter that fire for her at all. We've just been trying to talk about how we want it to be really her decision and not influenced by her friends or her sister, and that it's kind of her big grown-up step in her relationship. And then my youngest, who's 4, is the boss of our family. And so she yells at us about Jesus and tells us, like, Mama, I see Jesus there. He's with me. He's in my smile. And and we're driving down the road and she's like, that's heaven up there. Jesus is watching over us. I'm like, okay. And so, it's just kind of, they're all very sweet moments, but they're all very different based on kind of where we can talk through things and kind of where they are as they grow in their knowledge. But it's really great. Like my youngest, Natalie, will yell at us that we need to pray the way that she's learned at her Christian preschool. Like we need to say the prayer song, and she'll yell at us all so we can sing her little song that she's learned about thanking Jesus for our food. So,
does everyone go along with that?
Most of the time. Or we just say, hey, sweet. Natalie, it's okay if we don't sing the song every time, but we can just pray, to Jesus with our hearts and just he hears whatever we say. And it doesn't have to be a certain type of prayer. And Natalie she's not for that one yet. So she's kind of like, no, we need to say the song. So
what would you say is each girl's favorite part about church? Could you
I think for my oldest, Elizabeth, she really hit the sweet spot this past year. She's now in 3rd grade, but she got to go to VIP camp this past year. And that just really was a sweet thing to share with her because I grew up at Westover. And so she got to be at a place that I got to go to growing up as a kid and, getting to talk about her experience and her getting to have that kind of
sweet.
Very sweet. And I think that really helped the beginning of the deepening of her faith, just getting to have people who weren't her parents be upfront and honest about, their relationship and their faith in Jesus, and these, sweet high school girls that were pouring into her, and just kind of that, like, her relationships with the people in the church kind of got a lot deeper as a result of it, just because she had more visible people pouring into her.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that that's kind of what I would say for her. And then my middle one, I joke that we can never lose Miss Judy or Miss Gaitha as her Bible teachers.
I believe that.
Because she loves them greatly. And she's in second grade, and she is very motivated by prizes. And
Miss Judy
she comes away with like fistfuls of stuff from like memorizing Bible verses and all that. And I'm like, it starts that conversation and getting in that point there. And so it cracks me up, but she'll come away and she's like got gifts for everyone. Like, this is for you and this is for you. So she's being thoughtful of it, but I just crack up when I pick her up. Like, she literally has armfuls of stuff every Sunday. And then my youngest, Natalie, she's in the threes class, and she's a little sponge, and she just soaks up everything around her. Like, she'll come back we'll be in the car, and she just busts out in a song that I was like, did you sing that in Kids to Praise today? And she's like, yeah. And she just loves to kind of sing, and she just takes everything in around her, like, when you're like, oh, they're not getting anything out of this. And she repeats things back, and she'll be like, Mama, remember Miss Sandra said this? Like, yes, you're right. I help out in her Bible class on Sunday mornings as basically a defense support to her Bible teacher. But like the fact that like you don't think she's listening, but she's repeating stuff back of what, remember the shepherd saw and all of that. And I'm just like, wow, okay. So they're all getting different things out of church, but they're all kind of having those little seeds planted. And for us, that was kind of a big reason why we came back to Westover was just the children's ministry and how invested they are in our kids, and just what a great place it is for them to grow in their own faith and really just kind of have those seeds planted and people pour into them. I love that I get to have relationships with adults that encourage me in my own faith growing up, and getting to kind of be on the other side of it as a peer, which is still sometimes odd. But at the same point, like people who saw things in me and helped nurture that, getting to see that now tenfold happening with my daughters is a really sweet thing.
That's really sweet. And I going back to VIP camp, I do think it's so critical that all of the youth are there. It's just such a sweet thing. They're pouring into them, and then they get to do that when they get in high school, and then pour into like other kids. And it's just like a big community at VIP camp. And it's really, really sweet because I'm out there cooking. And it's sweet to see that, like when they're anxious from like being away from home, and like these little 10th graders are helping them through their anxiety or missing mom and dad. It's really, really sweet that they have that. And Kason still, Cooper was his counselor, still talks about Cooper and Landon. And it's just really sweet to see that.
I know we will walk in like the auditorium, and teens will just shout out my child's name, like, hey, Elizabeth. And it's just like, she has her own little kind of, not a girl gang, but like her own little, who she is with them. And so that's cute to see just how she kind of has grown into the comfort level of that.
Yeah, just the youth and the children's ministry. I'm with you. Like, it's huge. That's what got us to Westover too. Yeah. Is when we came in, I guess it was like the second or third week, and they were doing Time to Bind up on the stage, and we were like, oh, this is like really impactful and really neat.
That was a big thing for Elizabeth when she got baptized, like when we talked through kind of what she wanted and how she wanted it to go about. And she was like, we have to do Time to Bind. Aww. It's really important that we do that. Yeah. And so it was hard not to get choked up in the moment, but I loved seeing her surrounded by her friends, her little age group of friends, but then all the teens on the outside just encouraging her and pouring truth into her and hugging her, and, just continuing to plant those seeds in, way beyond one couple days in the summer. Yeah.
How has teaching helped you in parenting?
It helps me with other people's kids. No, I'm joking. I think, teaching, it's very humbling to become a parent of your own children. because I think that I have a lot of ideas and perceptions going into parenting that I was very humbled.
We all did.
Yeah. It was like the person I was before I had children and who I am now, I was very different with just that humblingness of my children. Like, I'll never say, I will never, because that's not true. But I think for anything else, what teaching kind of helped me with is really just learning to champion the individual and learning to encourage my girls and their own gifts and strengths, which is hard because I have 3 competing for my attention at many different times, and they all want it sometimes at the same time. But just trying to give them and really kind of champion for outlets for them to be able to do activities or things that really kind of speak to who they are. I think with teaching, it was really just, and I ended up being, which puts me in a unique role, being a GT teacher my last few years. So I really got to work on helping kids, my awkward, lovely middle school kids, really kind of find their comfort in, the big difficultness that can be middle school and find their own little quirky place. And I think for them, my classroom sometimes was a little bit of a sanctuary in the sea of trouble things, but just like this, it was a place where they got to go and be themselves. And so now I'm trying to do that with my kids and really just trying to, encourage them that they all have unique gifts and they don't have the same gifts, and they all
that's so good.
They all see things in a different way.
Yeah.
And, and some of them were still kind of like, one will parrot the other because that's what they see, like an older sibling or whatever. And it's like, are you saying that because so-and-so said that? Well, yeah. Okay. But let's talk about what you really want. Like, some silly example is we went to Disney a couple summers ago, and we traumatized our children by taking the older girls on a ride that they hated, and they cried, and we just had to wait for it to end. Because it was the Avatar ride.
Okay.
And we were locked in the little seats, and they were both like crying and screaming and just like, you guys got to, close your eyes and bear it. And then talking to one of them after the fact, after kind of gotten over the adrenaline of it all, it was like, I don't think you were actually scared. I think you were feeding off of what your sister was feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that if given the chance, you'd probably actually enjoy these kind of rides because, I don't think it scares you the way it scares your sister. And she was like, yeah, I think you're right. But we had to be removed from the situation. Like, it was like a week or so later. And they wanted to watch Glutton for Punishment. They wanted to watch like the YouTube video of the ride because their eyes were closed for most of it. So they don't know what happened. And they were like, and talking to her, she was like, yeah, you're right. I probably actually wasn't that scared, but just kind of like in that moment, her fears were intensified because the person she looked up to was scared.
Aww.
And so I think that kind of had her feel that way. But like, we rode a roller coaster, the next day we talked him back into one, and we solidified that one rides like that are not her thing, but the other one rode with her dad. And I think she actually had enjoyed herself, all things considered. So the one that was scared was with me, and we just held hands and were quiet the whole ride and got through it. And then the other two were like, seemed to be enjoying themselves a little more. And I think that's just kind of like, they're with each other probably the most. And so they feed off of each other's ideas and energy. But what I've loved to see, like as my middle one has gotten older, starting to see her come into her own, like what she actually wants and likes and thinks, and not just because her big sister's doing it. So, I mean, sometimes she wants to do what big sister's doing because, that's a draw, but just getting to kind of have her find her individuality in that.
That's a hard one for me because I have the oldest one, and I'm like, well, he should be at this level because Kason was doing this at this. And just remembering they are so different. They're going to have very different gifts. And it's very hard for me to see those gifts until they get older. Yeah. A little bit older. I feel like 9 or 10. Like, I'm just now starting to see them a little bit and being like, okay, he's going to be really good at this, and not seeing those other ones so much yet. You can see him a little bit starting to develop, but not really yet.
Well, the older two, what's also interesting is they're 2 years apart, but they're a year apart in school. And they're both in the dual language program, so they have the same teachers.
Oh, and interesting.
So, like, because they stay together with the group they're in, and most of the teachers don't rotate off. And so having to have those conversations with the teachers, and I was like, I know you know this, but Abigail and Elizabeth are very different, and they have very different learning styles. And I know you know that as a teacher, but I'm just planting that seed that Elizabeth will try to teach her class, and Abigail's going to hang back. And she's just kind of a slow burner until she feels comfortable, and then look out. She'll be up there with the rest of them. But Elizabeth would easily anytime jump up and try to, take lead and whatever. Like I joke that because she's older for her grade, because she's a fall birthday, that I was like, that's one reason why I put her in dual language. So she wouldn't try to take over the class because that's just, she is a leader. A friend phrased strong will early on to me as leadership qualities. And I have 3 very lovely leadership qualified.
That's great,
little
though.
ladies.
I mean,
super, super great for
hard to
down
parent.
the road. Hard to parent.
It's very hard to parent.
And my oldest has a lot of similarities to me that I recognize that are strengths for me, but can also be weaknesses. And so we can butt heads because, like, the qualities about myself that can drive me crazy can be magnified in my child.
Yeah.
And so we can push each other's buttons really well. But I think it's interesting to see, like, as they've gotten comfortable to kind of advocate for the things they're good at or the things they like. Elizabeth, we supported her as she tried out different sports. Because we didn't know, and she's very tall, and so people expect her to kind of have athletic abilities.
Yeah.
But she is blessed with my husband's height, but my coordination. So it doesn't seem like athletics is her thing at this point in time. And I love that she was just like a year or so ago, she was like, Mom, sports are not for me. It's like, okay, that's fine. Let's find what it is for you. So she's gotten comfortable kind of trying different things that she wants to try. Like she's been doing acting and she took guitar lessons. And so just getting to kind of give her that freedom to kind of find what does want to do or what she might be interested in. And, I had to coach soccer this fall for 7-year-old girls.
Look at you.
Yeah. Well, no one else did. And it was like, we had to have a game. So I coached 7-year-old girl soccer, and it took a little bit for Abigail, but then she got comfortable within that and kind of just took her a couple weeks to kind of find a rhythm. But then she was like running up and down the field and kicking goals and just getting to see her come like into confidence within that. And, where she wasn't really sure. And we had tried it a year or 2 prior, but just seeing that from her. And so just kind of trying to find avenues to help nurture their physical gifts, but also like just their personalities and who they are. And we are not always perfect in that, for sure. And we fail a lot. But I mean, that's a conversation we have with them sometimes, is like, sometimes if they get in trouble or whatever, your punishment is not going to be the same as your sister's.
Yes.
Because, certain punishments are not necessarily going to carry as much weight to one versus the other. And so it may not seem fair, but fair is not equal. Like it's fair that you're both getting a punishment, but it may not be the exact same punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of have to still find our footing with that all the time. It's just like trying to help give reasonable consequences that meet whatever the infraction is, but also that just also gives purpose as to why. Like that we're not just like basically punishing them for whatever, but like if, something happened, that the consequence that we give, it, makes sense to why. Mm-hmm. So like, we had a child find some makeup and decorate her face. And so her consequence part of that was the makeup is now far, far away. But, we didn't really take it any more beyond that. And I'm sure the other one wanted like lots of justice in that moment for it. And I was like, it's not, we're just moving forward. We're picking our battle, and this is not the one.
Yeah.
So
that's a good lesson for them to learn though too, right? Just
like,
in all of it.
Yeah. You don't want me to get onto you for everything. I mean, I can, but we'll both be exhausted.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel like you've helped those leadership skills like grow, since you see it in all of them a little bit? And because I'm sure it's different helping them in each of them, because they're both also different.
Yeah. I think for some of it, is especially with my older two, it's been conversations a lot about seeing the other kids. Like seeing, like I remember when Elizabeth was, talking about so-and-so that was like acting out or getting in trouble. And, this is when she was younger. And it was just talking about, hey, I think that you need to remember that they need a friend too. And they may not be the easiest to be a friend to, but, just loving them how it's easiest, like how you can, but still being like a model to your friends that look at you, like let's not be harsh and shun whoever who's doing X, Y, Z for whatever reason. Yes, you need to advocate for yourself and be safe if they're not being a safe friend. But at the same point, like you can still find ways to be a friend to them in the midst of it. And people are going to look at you. And I'm not saying that to put pressure on her at all, but like for my oldest one, we've had conversations with her for a very long time about there are a couple of things that people always are going to comment on for you just because of your appearance. She's very tall for her age. So people are going to always talk about your height and her hair because she has curly hair. And it's like, it may not be fair, but people are going to expect more of you because they think you're older. And, it's like, I want her to have the freedom to be a kid still and, be able to do that. But it's like, people are going to have high expectations for you because they think you're possibly 2 years older than you are. And for her, she's kind of an old soul in a lot of ways. And so she is more grounded than that. But we do get pushback on occasion when she's like, I'm tired of you guys giving me all the responsibility. I need a break. Yeah. And so we're just trying to work with her on how to word, hey, I need to take a step back or whatever, instead of like not finding the words and blowing up. And then for, Abigail, she is just naturally a really good friend to all. Like if she sees someone, she wants to kind of find the person on the perimeter and seek them out. And, in Abigail's mind, she has like 20 best friends, which is great. And I want to protect her tender heart for that. Like that may not be always the reality. But I just love that she sees people and like she'll tell me kind of what she noticed about so-and-so, and we'll have conversations about that. Like, well, why do you think maybe they were like sitting on the side and didn't play with anybody? Maybe could you invite them to play your game with you next time? Well, yeah, sure. And just trying to have it be like, not forcing it on them that you must do this, but more kind of like, well, why do you think they might be that? How could you possibly help them feel more included? And she kind of rises to that occasion, which is really sweet. I have this unique privilege to be in their school a couple times a week. I teach their gifted and talented classes. And so I actually have both of them as students, which is odd. So I don't have them in the same class, thankfully. But getting to kind of see them in that environment amongst their peers is kind of interesting to see. I always joke that I want to meet the school version of my kids versus the at-home version. I don't know that I'm getting the true school version because, as I've told one of them, I was like, I know you wouldn't act like this in front of a real teacher. And remember that I am a real teacher. So I'm not your mom in here. But just kind of getting to see who they are and kind of how they have found their comfort level amongst their peers and kind of being their unique self.
That's neat. That's really neat to get to see. What do you feel like is the one thing that y'all like do at home that has helped grow their faith and just love for Jesus?
Oh, I think honestly, that's something that we constantly are improving on. I think that we have some really good building blocks that we've had here where we get to continue conversations in the car and at home. And, what is it? I feel like the time before they go to sleep is where you have the most honest and most real conversations.
They want to talk.
They want to tell you the world. And just getting to have those little nuggets of time where we get to talk through it. Their dad we kind of double duty on bedtime. And so he does the start part and I do the wrap up. And so he always reads the Bible with them every night. And they pray together and they just kind of have the snippets of that conversation. And then when I come in, they might want to continue it more or ask more conversations. And so just getting to kind of have that foundation there is really just a place for conversations to happen. I think the best conversations we've had have been right before they go to sleep. And in the car, because for whatever reason, that's when they want to pipe up with, this is happening with XYZ. And
like that's our too, when they want to talk a lot.
So, and I'm trying to be more conscious of playing more worship music in the car so they can hear songs they know and recognize. And we can all sing together, or Natalie can tell me it's time for Kids Bop, which is her fave. But just trying to have those seeds that are planted in the communities they're in with church. And for Natalie, she goes to a Christian preschool, and getting to kind of take that and really trying to help it grow. And also knowing that, we are perfectly imperfect at parenting. And so just praying that God work through me and in spite of me, and that his words be laid upon their hearts versus my agenda or my words. Good. Because, I'm just going to mess up at this parenting thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's also important, is that I own to my kids that I am not perfect, that I am going to mess up, and I'm going to own to them when I mess up, because they need to see that and see that, their faith in Christ doesn't make them, without error or mistake, but it's him that frees us from that. And so just trying to, fail upwards with them, like where just being real about who I am and my limitations, and when I am not the best mom to them, and trying to just kind of talk through that with them of, hey, I screwed up today, and I raised my voice, and that wasn't fair to you. And let's talk about why I was frustrated. And, and that's honestly, we have to come together when probably those times before bed, when we're just calm and able to really.
Everybody's removed from it for a little bit. Yeah.
The emotion has come down, and we can just really have open and real conversations.
Yeah. So, that's so good. Well, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.